Hi, this is the fifth scenario, second method in module 8, pivoting the data and loading into the table using the pivot transformation. So we know that we have the data and we want to convert into the pivoted form. So that the year becomes the column and sales amount is aggregated into the values of those years. So let's jump into the demonstration. So I have already created this package. We have the truncate table command using the execute SQL task. I am truncating this table using the OLEDB destination, and we have the data flow task, and inside data flow task we have used the ADO.NET source to read some data and then use the pivot transformation, and then using the ADO.NET destination we are loading this data into the destination. So in read data we have this command. I have already copied this to the query window, and this is the data. So you can see that this was the flat data, and we have aggregated this on salesperson ID and year. Okay, something like this: salesperson ID, sales year, and sum of sales year as sales amount. Group by salesperson ID year, and also order by. I have this complete query to query the data, and then it is producing these columns: salesperson ID, sales year, sales amount. I have used the pivot command, pivot transformation. It is available inside this other transformation, the pivot and unpivot. So we can use the pivot to pivot the data and unpivot to unpivot the data. We have used the pivot. In pivot, you can see there is pivot key, set key, pivot value, and the columns are generated there. So we have used this sales here to be the columns. So the sales here, the values of sales here will be the column names, and this is set key. Set is salesperson ID key. So it will be the key of that pivot, and there is pivot value. So the pivot value is sales amount, right? And then if we, it is automatically generated, so we click on this, it generates the column were generated, the following columns were generated, and it will show there. So we have already there, so we don't need these two columns. So let me open it again. So we have already these columns, right? So this is how we can configure this pivot transformation. But for pivot value we would need the aggregated values in the column. So that's why we have applied this sum on sales amount while reading the data, and we can configure the pivot transformation like this. And then we have the destination, ADO.NET destination, and we are mapping, we are providing the table name and mapping. In mapping we have mapped all the columns: the source column, input columns, and the destination columns. Again I have ignored for -1 column. So you can see the difference between this and SQL. So there is a subquery, we have subquery in this query also, and we in pivot we are applying the summation. Here we are applying the summation on top of this query, and yes, here we have used the pivot clause with for. So we are generating the columns from values of year, and explicit columns are provided there. But here it will be generated by the pivot transformation. So this is how we can configure the pivot transformation. It is easy to use. It has very uh, good representation, whether you can see the pivot key, what column should be the key and columns, and what should be the set key, and pivot value, what is the column that has the pivot value, and it automatically generates the columns for pivot key. So this is how we can use the pivot transformation to pivot the data, or the tsql command for pivoting the data with pivot clause. Let's execute this package. You can see this data was source data, and it pivoted into this data. So we have salesperson ID 1, and for 2 years 2019 and 20 it is 2000 and 1000. So for 2019 it is 2000, and 2020 it is 1000. So it is loading the data into the table. Let's query that data. See, this is loaded into the destination table. So we can use the pivot transformation to pivot the data, but the trick is that the values should be aggregated in the source query itself. There is no way to apply the aggregation in this pivot transformation.